What's going on, everybody? Welcome into Luttie's Look Back. My name is Nick Luttrell. We've got a fun show today with a lot of baseball from around the natural state, including my preview on Arkansas softball and what they've got coming up in the NCAA tournament. But we'll start my show how we always do with my three big things from Arkansas's series loss to LSU on Friday, a 5-4 loss in, I think it was extra innings, maybe 11th or 12th inning, maybe the 10th. Disappointing and frustrating loss on Friday that went into the wee hours of the morning on Saturday, and then Saturday's game, a 13-3 run rule loss in 7 innings. Sunday's game, a 7-4 win for the Razorbacks. So my three big things. The first one, inconsistent play all around for the Razorbacks this weekend against the Tigers. The second big thing, starting pitching just back to being short-lived. Not long enough pitching out of your starters that you want if you're a Razorback fan or a Razorback coach or player. My third big thing is I'm still not panicking. Arkansas, I still believe, is a top 8 team. So we'll go back up to the first one, explain them all. The first one, inconsistent play. And this is something that I guess Arkansas has dealt with throughout the season, and I guess that's just how sports work. You're never going to be fully consistent. But in this series, I think we saw it. We saw some shines of Arkansas being good, being to the potential that we think that they can be, which is the number 1 team in the country like they were previously this season. But we also saw times when they weren't that at all, when their pitching really struggled, when they couldn't hit the ball worth a darn. Friday, in their game, the 5-4 loss on Friday, they again struggled with clutch hitting. That was an issue on Friday. They were better with that on Sunday. Friday, they left 9 guys on base. With runners in scoring position, they really struggled in this series, which is something they've struggled with at times this season, especially in the last week or two. I feel like at least I've noticed it. But it's obviously tough when you do it against an LSU team. And then the other thing that was, I guess this was consistent but weird, just a weird thing that doesn't normally happen, and that was the play out of Arkansas's shortstop, Aloy. Defensively, he was still great. Offensively, he was not. He had his worst weekend of the season, maybe of his career. 2 hits on 12 at-bats. Probably the worst, definitely the worst of the season, maybe the worst of his career. 8 strikeouts. 8 strikeouts for Aloy. That's your best player. That's what the guy that people were saying is the SEC Player of the Year. Maybe the best player in college baseball right now. Maybe will win the Golden Spikes Award. And the second to last weekend of the regular season, you lay an egg. And that was frustrating. And it was just a little bit of inconsistent out of him because he had some good at-bats, especially on Sunday. He had some good at-bats, but it would always end with a strikeout. And that's disappointing when your best player has that type of performance against one of the best teams in the country. That's why you lose baseball games 13-3 when you don't have Aloy playing good. So that was a struggle. That was a little inconsistent out of what we saw from Aloy. And I mentioned defensively he played well. The infield as a whole, the defense didn't play to the level that they normally play. They had 2 errors this past weekend, which isn't crazy. I'm not complaining about 2 errors in 3 games played. But if you watch the game, you notice there were moments where that could have been called an error, but it was actually called a hit. There were moments where, okay, normally Brent Iredale makes that play at third base. Normally Cam Kozel makes that play at second base. And those were just issues that we don't normally see out of this Arkansas baseball team. And it's hard going on the road and winning in the SEC. But it was just inconsistent play that really hurt the Hogs this weekend against the Tigers. The second big thing is the starting pitching. Something that had been an issue for the past month or two, probably, except for the Texas series. The Texas series was an outlier when it came to starting pitching. All 3 starting pitchers were great. They were phenomenal. In this series against LSU, they weren't, with the exception of being Zach Root. Zach Root, 6-inning pitch. He wasn't his best on Friday night against the Tigers, but he was good enough for Arkansas to get the win. Obviously, they lose in extra innings. Their pitching was great, except for his name is Aiden Jimenez, except for Aiden Jimenez, who came in relief of Zach Root on Friday night, Saturday morning, whatever you want to call it, and really struggled. And that hurt the Hogs. I hate to say it, but Arkansas lost game 1 of this series because of Aiden Jimenez. And that's frustrating because you never want to blame a loss on one player. But you watch that game, you can agree with me that the loss goes on him. But back to starting pitching, that was an issue this weekend again. Root was good, 6 innings pitched, 6 strikeouts, didn't walk anybody, only gave up 2 runs. Gage Wood Saturday, not good at all. Landon Biocheese on Sunday, better but still not good. Both of them went 2 innings pitched. They both gave up 4 hits, 3 runs for Cheese, 4 runs for Wood. They both struck out a few, but not good enough. 2 innings pitched is not good enough against one of the best teams in the country. And I get it is against one of the best teams in the country, but you still want your starting pitching to last at least 4 innings. At least 4. And I really do hope once Arkansas gets into postseason play, especially the regional, they don't have to play an SEC team. I'm really curious to see how far these starting pitchers can go. With Gage Wood, we're either going to get Kevin Kopp's material, and he's going to strike out 8 and go for 6 innings, or we're going to get insert name of bad Arkansas pitcher. I don't know. No one has the Arkansas pitchers who weren't good memorized. I don't have their names memorized. But Gage Wood is either really good or really bad, is what I'm saying. And he was pretty bad on Saturday for the Hogs. Landon Biocheese, on the other hand, has some signs of being pretty good, but there's a reason he's the Game 3 starter. And there's a reason he could get bumped out of that role. There's a lot of talk for a long time about Aiden Jimenez stepping into that role and being the Game 3 starting pitcher. Obviously, that's changed a little bit because of Jimenez's performance this weekend. So now it's Biocheese that's the Game 3 guy. Patrick Coyle's back from being injured, so maybe you throw him in there as a Game 3 starter. I'm curious to see what Coach Van Horn does in Game 3 against Tennessee on Saturday, this upcoming weekend. We'll talk about that later. That's big point number 2. My big point number 3, I'm not panicking. I'm still not panicking on this Arkansas baseball team. I still think they're a top 8 national seed. If you don't follow baseball, if you just happen to watch this show on THV 11+, it's a big deal to be a top 8 national seed. You get to host the regionals at your place on regional weekend, the first round of the NCAA tournament. And then the weekend after that, assuming you win, you get to host the Super Regionals. That's assuming you win. Arkansas hasn't done that. They've been a top 8 seed the past 2 seasons, but they haven't gotten out of their own regional. That's why it's been so frustrating in the past, is because Arkansas loses in the regional games at home. So hopefully they don't make that same mistake this season. But no doubt, I think they are a top 8 seed. I think they are good enough to get to Omaha. They definitely are good enough to win the whole freaking thing. But will they? I don't know. It's so hard to tell. It's all about who's playing their best baseball at the right time. After the Texas series, I thought that was the Arkansas Razorbacks. After the LSU series, I'm not so sure. But I'm not putting a ton of worry, a ton of stock into going on the road and losing against an LSU team that is also a top 8 team. Against an LSU team that also could be a national champion when it comes to June. I'm not too worried. And I'm also not too worried because it's at LSU. It's at Alex Box Stadium, a place that nobody wins a series at. So everyone knows, at least if you're a sports fan, you follow Arkansas baseball, when you go on the road in the SEC, what do you try to do? You just try to win one. You just try to win one. Especially against a top 25 ranked team, you just try to win one. And that's what Arkansas did. So you can't complain about that too much. There's like 5 different ranking systems that has Arkansas anywhere from like 11 to number 1 in the country before the LSU series. I'd put them in my top 8. I think it's a good baseball team. The SEC is just weird sometimes, right? Arkansas sweeps the number 1 team in the country at their place, and then they go on the road and almost get swept by LSU. You want to look at other SEC scenarios? Florida won the series against Texas this weekend. Texas A&M got swept by Missouri. There's other SEC baseball news. Missouri hadn't won a single SEC game the entire season. Missouri wins and sweeps 3 wins against Texas A&M, the preseason number 1 team, the same team that beat Arkansas at Arkansas 2 out of 3. It's just weird. The SEC is just weird sometimes. And there's a lot of really good teams. So I'm not putting a lot of stock into this series loss. I still have a lot of confidence in Arkansas baseball going forward. So those are some of my thoughts. Let's hear from head coach Dave Van Horn what he had to say after yesterday's Game 3 win over the Tigers.
It was a really good win for our team, obviously. After that tough game yesterday when nothing went right, we didn't play well, didn't pitch or field well. And then, the opening game, which we never really talked about, we had a 2-run lead, I think, going into the 7th and gave it up and then lost in extra innings. And when you look back on it, should have won game 1. Yesterday's game happened. Today's game was a real, kind of back and forth type game. We just pitched extremely well. Got out of a couple jams, got a couple big hits, put together that 4-run inning after being down 2, and then just pitched our way to the end. And it was a big score in the top of the 9th after they cut the lead to 1 there in the bottom of the 8th. This is a tough place to win and to hold on to games, and I was proud of the team for bouncing back.
All right, so the Razorbacks get 1 at LSU, and there wasn't a ton of bright spots. It wasn't the best weekend for Arkansas baseball, but there was actually one player that I think is worthy of my Luttie's Legend of the Week, and it's Ryder Helfrich, the catcher for the Razorbacks. He might have not made the best defensive stops at times on the defensive side as far as catching for Arkansas, but hitting, he was on an absolute tear this weekend. I think he started as the 8-hole, the 8th guy on the lineup for the Razorbacks as far as the batting order is concerned. He got bumped up to the 5th on Sunday, and that really worked. He was 6 for 10 this weekend, a 600 batting average. 4 of his 6 hits were doubles. Those extra base hits is really important, obviously, in the game of baseball, and Ryder Helfrich definitely did that. Just looking at kind of some of his stats and what he did each at bat, he had, this is just Friday's game: a single, a double, a lined out, struck out looking. So that's a good day on Friday. Saturday, a bunt single. He can do it. He can do it different ways. He didn't have a home run, but he had a lot of doubles, and he had a lot of hard hit balls, which is what you want. And he only had 1, I think, RBI on the weekend, but he played really well for this Razorback team that at times was struggling. And I think to see Helfrich get back-to-back doubles for the Razorbacks in Sunday's game, I think that showed the team, hey, we're okay. We lost 13-3 yesterday, whatever. We're moving on to today now. And now we're seeing our guy go out there and get back-to-back doubles. We're going to play for him, and we're going to follow suit. We're going to get him home, and they did a few times in yesterday's game. So Ryder Helfrich was certainly big in Arkansas's Game 3 win over LSU yesterday and in their whole series. Even though they lost the series, Helfrich was big. And that's kind of a little bit of an unlikely guy who I would expect as my Legend of the Week for this week. Coming into the week, he was not batting very well. He was batting okay, good for an 8 spot in a nine-person batting lineup. But I didn't expect him to be my Legend of the Week. But he is. A 6 for 10 performance, 4 doubles on the weekend for Ryder Helfrich. That is my Luttie's Legend of the Week. So that is some of the baseball talk. Now let's move on to softball. The little mini bracket that we got here that Arkansas is playing in for this weekend. They got the regional this weekend. The past 2 years, they haven't been able to make it out of their own regional, just like the baseball team. Hopefully softball can turn things around this season and take down these teams to make it through. We'll get to the bracket in a second, but talking about some of these teams, Arkansas has a hard draw. They do. They got a hard draw. Look, they're the number 4 team. That ties their highest, or I guess I should say lowest, best mark in program history as far as seeding goes in the NCAA tournament. So their road to the College World Series to Oklahoma City should be relatively easy. But these teams are definitely not easy. St. Louis, Arkansas should be able to get past, but these top 2 teams really scare me. You heard on the broadcast them talking about a little bit. The 3 seed here, Indiana, the Hoosiers out of the Big Ten, were a bubble team to make it into the NCAA tournament. They made it here, and it's kind of a tale of 2 teams. As far as offensively, they're one of the best offensive teams in the country. They talked about it just a while ago. They got the top batting average and on-base percentage in the country. It starts with Taylor Minnick. She's 6th in the country in batting average with .470. That's right below Bri Ellis. So I'm not saying she's to the level of Bri Ellis is this Hoosiers player, but she's pretty good. And she's someone who, if Arkansas will face the Hoosiers, possibly if they take down St. Louis, they're going to have to watch out for Taylor Minnick to possibly get past her. That's Indiana. Oklahoma State poses a much bigger challenge for Arkansas. They're a really special team, a team that they mentioned on the broadcast there was possibly going to be hosting their own regional. Now they're in Fayetteville in Arkansas's regional. So a really tough draw. An Oklahoma State team that has been really good the past few seasons. Not as good this year, obviously. They're not hosting a regional. They're not nationally ranked. But the past 5 seasons, they've won a regional, a super regional, and they've made it all the way to the College World Series. They're a real dominant team. They're a really good team. And again, 5 straight Women's College World Series appearances. That is the case for Oklahoma State. So 2 really good teams in Indiana and Oklahoma State. St. Louis, Arkansas should be able to get past, but then you got a challenge going up against both of those 2 teams. Let's throw this away and look at the bracket as a whole. What would happen if Arkansas won their regional and advanced to the super regional? We've broke down brackets on this show before. You're probably familiar with it. You see Arkansas in the bottom left corner of the screen here. In the very top left is Arizona, the 13th seed. So it's possible that if Arkansas were to get past these teams in the Fayetteville Regional, they would advance to this spot, face off whoever wins out of the Tucson Regional, which most likely would be Arizona. Arizona is obviously the projected team. They're the ones in the Tucson Regional that is expected to win that regional and make it onto the Super Regional. If Arkansas wins, they would host another series this time in the Super Regionals, facing off against Arizona. But quickly, a few more notes before we go on what that would look like going forward. Obviously, Arkansas down here, they'd have to beat St. Louis first. And remember, this isn't it's not as perfect and organized as it is with March Madness and with basketball when you look at brackets in the softball and baseball world, because it's double elimination. So if Arkansas loses the first one to St. Louis, which probably won't happen, but if they do, then that would throw off a couple more things. Arkansas would have to kind of win their way all the way into the winner's bracket. There's a whole separate bracket from what we're looking at here. But just to make it clean and organized, this is what it would look like as far as if the Razorbacks can get past these 3 teams, if Arizona can get past those 3 teams, which obviously Arizona would have to get past Ole Miss, an SEC team, which is pretty good. They would both advance to these spots. And then the winner, which would be not this upcoming weekend, but the next weekend, the winner in this super regional would advance to this spot, which is the Women's College World Series, something that Arkansas has been right there for the past 4 seasons. They've lost back-to-back years in their regional. The 2 years before that, they lost in the super regional. Now they're trying to once again be a really good team, which they are, but they're trying to get out of their regional, get to the super regional, and make it to the College World Series. I think at this point, if they lose anywhere before the College World Series, I'm not saying the season is a disappointment. I'm not saying the season was all for nothing, but it would be disappointing. Obviously, that outcome would be disappointing. And so the hope would be Arkansas would make it that far. And once they get to that point, then it's job well done. It's good luck from there on. Are they a team that could possibly win the national championship? Yes, they're the number 4 overall team in the country. They can do that. Are they also a team that could lose their own regional like we've seen in the past? That's also true. So quickly, again, before we go on, Oklahoma State and Indiana, possibly the teams at Arkansas that could stump Arkansas from potentially making it on to the super regional. You have to remember Oklahoma State, and again, this was back in the fall, but back in the fall in October, Arkansas and Oklahoma State played in an exhibition game in Tulsa. What happened in that game? Oklahoma State won 6-0. So Arkansas might have a little bit of revenge on their mind, assuming they come face to face with the Cowboys, with the Cowboys in this possibly in this regional. I mentioned Oklahoma State, obviously a really good team. They're a really good pitching team and a really good fielding team. As far as pitching, Ruby Million is the one who leads the way for the Cowboys. Top 10 in the country in strikeout. She's 14th in the country in ERA. She's really good. Arkansas will obviously have to get past her to take down Oklahoma State. She pitches a lot. On Indiana's side of things, and back Oklahoma State, they're good fielding, they're really good pitching, and they're okay hitting. So that's what you need to know about Oklahoma. On the flip side, Indiana, I mentioned really good hitting. One of the best offensive teams in the country. On the flip side, obviously, they were a bubble team heading into this tournament. Some thought they might not should have made it to this point where they were at. That's not because of their offense. That's because of their defense. That's because of their pitching, something they have struggled at a lot this season. So if Arkansas does get the chance to play the Hoosiers, you would expect Arkansas to put up a lot of runs. You'd expect it to be a very high-scoring game. And if history serves Arkansas correctly as far as this season, they've had a lot of run rule victories, a lot of times where they can score a lot of runs, hit a lot of home runs, including Bri Ellis. And that kind of leads into my last point before we move on to hear what Coach Deifel said about what the draw she has here. Some keys to winning. My 3 big keys to winning for Arkansas in this regional to advance to the Super Regional to possibly face off against Arizona or Ole Miss most likely. The first one is pitching. Robin Herron has to be the ace that she is. We've seen at times this season she hasn't been what many thought she might be as far as growth and as far as dominance. But at other times this season, we have seen that dominance. So what you want to see out of Robin Herron, obviously, is her to dominate the game. She has the potential to be one of the best college softball pitchers. And if she plays that way, Arkansas will have no problem getting out of this regional and making it onto the Super Regional. Robin Herron has to keep being the ace that she is. The second point, defensively, they have to keep it up. They're second in the country in fielding percentage. Ella McDowell really helps that out, the freshman third baseman for the Razorbacks. They got Atalia Rijo at shortstop, Carly Davison at second base, and then Bri Ellis is a stud at first base. If you've seen Bri Ellis highlights, you see her hit bombs, but she's a really good fielder as well and a really good first baseman. They've got a lineup in the infield that is really special and is special enough to get them all the way to the College World Series. They need to keep that up in this regional because they are the best team. Out of all these teams, they are the best team. They just need to play like it. And then my final big point, I mentioned Bri Ellis, and yes, she is very vital, very important to this Arkansas team, but I feel like everyone kind of knows that. So my point, my last 3 of the keys to win is actually Reagan Johnson, the leadoff hitter for Arkansas this entire season. The slapper has a .367 batting average this season, and for her, she needs to continue having the big games that she's had in the past. She has a unique style of play, being a slapper, being the speedster that she is, being the defensive weapon that she is in center field. They need her to play her best as well because when she gets on base, which is pretty often, that sets it up for the rest of the lineup, including Bri Ellis, to also have a really good game. So those are some of the things I think Arkansas needs to do well in order to win their regional here and advance to the Super Regional. Let's hear from head coach Courtney Deifel now on what she had to say about this regional, about the draw they got in the NCAA tournament.
We're pretty confident that we were going to get Oklahoma State and St. Louis. So the question more so was who was our 3 seed going to be? And so that one was the surprise to us. But we knew the other 2 were probably gonna be here as the day kind of unfolded and the weekend unfolded. So it's gonna be a tough region. I think there's really good teams, so it's gonna be tough, but everything's tough this time of year, and so that's what we expect.
And so the first tough challenge for the Razorbacks will be Friday, 5:30. Unfortunately, not nationally televised, so it will be on ESPN+. Obviously, that game's starting at 5:30, so we'll have highlights on our 10 o'clock broadcast on Friday, so make sure you tune back in for that. But I didn't talk much about St. Louis. With all due respect to them, I don't know if they're worth talking about. I expect Arkansas to get past the 4 seed in this tournament. Arkansas, if you want to bubble it down to the regional, Arkansas the 1 seed, St. Louis the 4 seed. Arkansas is the better team, as I mentioned, against a lot of teams in the country. They're the better team against St. Louis. Hopefully they can run rule them, take advantage of a St. Louis team that has been good this year, won their conference tournament. Yoo-hoo, good for them. But Arkansas needs to get past them in order to advance to play one of the really good teams in Oklahoma State or Indiana. All right, and moving on to some other baseball scores and news from this past weekend. We're going to go through all 4 of the other teams besides the Razorbacks as far as baseball is concerned. Arkansas State, UCA, Little Rock, and UAPB. We'll start with the Red Wolves. They played host to number 19 Troy over the weekend. They lost the series, but they did salvage it and salvage a sweep, I should say, winning a game on Sunday, the 7-6 win. These games were pretty crazy because Arkansas State has shown this year that they can pick up some good wins. They've definitely shown that. And in this series, they had an opportunity to take the series. They had an opportunity to sweep a top 25 team. You look at Friday's game, they lost 9-8. But they were up 8-4 in the 7th inning. Saturday's game, they lost 8-7, but they were up 7-5 in the 8th inning. Sunday, they finally learned their lesson. They won 7-6 after being up 6-3 in the 8th inning. So when I look at that, I see, all right, let's do a better job of holding on to some of these leads. But again, it's against a really good Troy Trojans team that is fighting for a regional spot right now in college baseball. One of the best teams in Arkansas State's conference, the Sun Belt. Let's go back to Friday's game, a 9-8 loss in 12 innings. Again, they were up by 4 runs until Troy scored 4. Trojans ended up hitting a home run in the top of the 12th to win it and take down the Red Wolves in game 1. But a big bright spot, Patrick Ingskov, and he was great this weekend for the Red Wolves. 7 hits, 15 at-bats. It's a .466 batting average, 2 home runs. The Red Wolves could hit this weekend, which was not surprising, but, you know, they struggle. I wouldn't say they struggle with hitting, but I would say their skill set and what they're best at is their pitching. And it was kind of flipped this weekend. What they were best at this weekend was their hitting. They had 5 home runs on Friday. Ingskov was great. Jack Henry Williams was great. He had a home run in each of these games. He batted .461 on the weekend, 5 RBIs. So they hit the ball well, but pitching obviously needed to step up a little bit in some of these games, especially down the stretch when they were up by a couple runs, and then they ended up blowing that lead. One other cool note from Saturday, Will French, the shortstop for the Red Wolves, became the program leader in runs scored after he had a home run on Saturday, so special for the senior. French on Sunday, 18 hits. They only won 7-6, but they had 18 hits. That's the most hits they've had in any game in the past 2 years. So impressive. Again, impressive that the bats got going. Maybe that's a sign going forward that they can get their offense going. And once they bring in the pitching and they play a team that they maybe should beat, you got a little bit of confidence heading into the conference tournament. Speaking of that, they got 1 weekend series left, just like all these teams. Right now, they're a bubble team to make it into their conference tournament. They'll play at Louisiana Lafayette this upcoming weekend. If they can, if they sweep that, they're in really good shape. They should make the tournament. If they lose all 3, different story. So I think Louisiana Lafayette's just a team that's a little bit better than them as far as the standings are concerned. So if A-State can win 1 or 2, make the conference tournament, the bats can keep going like they did this past weekend, you got a lot of confidence for them going forward. So that's Arkansas State. Let's now move on to Central Arkansas, UCA. They also lost the series to Austin Peay. The Governors are a team that are the best team, in my opinion, in their conference right now. They're also top 10 in the country in batting average and slugging and on-base percentage. On-base percentage, yeah. I could have that down written wrong. Whatever. Austin Peay, a really good team, and UCA able to get 1 win out of that series. That's good, especially on the road. I think that's pretty good for them. On Friday, they lost 9-2 after being up 2-0. They lost 9-2. Saturday was the game that they won. They won 11-7. They also started up 3-0, and then they again lost that lead, fell down 7-4. Before eventually winning 11-7. And that win did qualify them for the Atlantic Sun Conference Tournament. Turned around Sunday and lost in run rule fashion, so I was disappointing there. But hitting hasn't been an issue, except for the loss on Friday. They only scored 2 runs. Saturday, 11 runs. Sunday, 4 runs, so not as much. But pitching just definitely, as I've talked about them more this season, has been a little bit of their struggle this year. The bright spot from the weekend, the first baseman, Jagger Shattle. I hope I'm pronouncing that correct. That's a freaking awesome name if that's truly his name. Jagger Shattle, 6 hits on 12 at-bats. It's a .500 batting average, drove in 7 runs. Really impressive for the Bear to be able to do that. So that is UCA. We'll keep an eye on them. They got 1 weekend coming up next. Little Rock, a series loss to UT Martin as well. All these teams struggled except for the last one we'll get to, UAPB, in a second. Little Rock, a 9-1 loss on Friday, 11-4 win on Saturday, in which they played really good, including a good performance from their starting pitcher, who had a no-hitter going through 4 innings, whose name is escaping me right now, and I'm a terrible journalist because of it. So I apologize to that pitcher. I should have written down his name, but he had a great performance for the Trojans on Saturday to lead them to an 11-4 win. Sunday, 11-6 loss, so they came right around and did what UT Martin did to them. Whatever, they lost Sunday, 1-2 series loss to UT Martin. The bright spot, though, as there is with all these teams, Zach Henry, 8 for 15 on the weekend. That's a .533 batting average. They got Southeastern Missouri next weekend. Unfortunately, though, Little Rock does not qualify for the Ohio Valley Conference Tournament, which is disappointing because they started the season as the preseason favorites, I think, to win it, or at least in the top three to win their conference tournament, to win their conference. And they have not performed to what people thought that they would this season. Injuries have affected that a little bit, but you want them to at least make the conference tournament, which Little Rock, no matter what happens this weekend, will not do that. Some more positive stuff, though, to finish out our 4 teams. UAPB, a 2-0 series win over Jackson State. Friday, a shutout win, 5-0. Saturday, a 4-3 walk-off win in the 11th inning against Jackson State. Sunday's game got rained out, so you can't really say they swept them, but you kind of can because Jackson State didn't win a game, so it kind of counts. Either way, they won the series, and they kind of got back to hitting their stride. Next weekend for them, that was their last at-home game, at-home series. Next weekend, they'll go on the road against Alabama and A&M. I think if they win one, they'll qualify for their conference tournament, so we'll see if they can do that and keep an eye on the Golden Lions. We'll finish up my show how we always do with my Lutties look ahead. Next up for the Razorback baseball team, they've got the Tennessee Volunteers coming to town. A really good team are the Vols, at least in recent years. So definitely a new blood in college baseball, but lately not trending in the right direction. So what does Arkansas need to do? They need to take advantage of a team that they are better than. If Arkansas sweeps the Volunteers, I will not be surprised. If they win the series, I will not be surprised. I'll be surprised if they do anything less than that. I think they should win the series easily. I think they should also sweep them. You never know when you got a really good Tennessee team. But again, right now, the Volunteers have not been playing good, and it's all about how you're playing now. And I think Arkansas, after winning this game against LSU, I think they'll come up a little bit confident against a Volunteers team that they're better than. That game Thursday at 7 o'clock on ESPN2 at home at Baum-Walker Stadium. It's obviously a 3-game series. And the next up after that will be the SEC tournament. Well, that's going to do it for Luttie's Look Back. Thanks so much for watching, everybody. A lot of baseball, of course, some softball talk, as well as the Razorback softball team gets ready for the NCAA tournament. And speaking of baseball, one last note before we send you away. High school tournament. We'll talk a little bit about high school coming up next week, or at least in the next few weeks as they get closer to their state championship. High school baseball, I think, and softball state tournaments are happening this weekend, in a 6A over at Burns Park, in the 5A at Benton. So we will continue. We'll monitor those. We'll have highlights throughout the weekend, and then possibly talk about them on next week's episode of Luttie's Look Back. Reach out to me if you want to for sure have your team mentioned. I'll be sure and talk about them. It's been so much fun as always. We'll see you same time, same place next week here on THV 11 Plus and YouTube.